Porn! Now that I got your attention, let's move on to today's video, shall we? Porn addiction is a term tossed around a lot in today's world, but what is it really, and what does having an addiction to porn actually mean? Well, the simplest definition of a porn addiction, the scientifically controversial application of an addiction model to the use of pornography. And pornography may be part of a compulsive behavior with negative consequences to one's physical, mental, social, or even financial well-being. And just out of curiosity, what is the simplest definition of an addiction? Well, an addiction is a neuropsychological disorder characterized by a persistent and intense urge to use a drug or engage in behavior that produces natural reward, despite substantial harm and other negative consequences. So, what is porn addiction really, and am I at risk? So the short and scary answers are, we aren't just quite sure yet, and yes, you are at risk. Job done, thanks for watching.
That's it then, I'll be off.
Okay, not really, and we've got lots more, and it's not like YouTube would allow us to use this platform to spread such oversimplified and outright false information, right? Okay, so let's just type in, what will I type into YouTube? Okay, porn addiction destroys
It's all right, get it?
But remember, that was just a short and incomplete answer. The long and currently more research-based answers are far more broad and vary greatly based on personal and social situations or pressures, so I will do my best to explain them here. So first and foremost, all true addictions follow something called the addiction model, which was mentioned in the definition of porn addictions. Essentially, what this means is addiction is a personal condition that will, for the most part, follow very similar paths, behaviors and traits, regardless of the addiction itself, be it substance like alcohol or amphetamines, or a more physical experience like watching porn or playing video games. And we will get to video games in another video, trust me. This is why the term porn addiction is so controversial, but I'm getting ahead of myself. The problem here is most people are under the impression that an addiction can be blamed for all that person's shortcomings, which will go away if they can kick the habit to whatever they seem to be addicted to. While defeating addiction is much more complex and often requires a complete shift in personal realization of what the person with the addiction is doing to themselves and others, accepting this realization and taking personal accountability for what they have been doing, and then work on developing all new impulse control and coping methods to even start the process of kicking the habit. Very few people can truly cut ties with an addiction cold turkey, as they say, and even fewer people will have solved this problem long term, making all their issues just magically go away. While true that porn in its availability is a very potent stimuli and can lead to a peak in dopamine release, it doesn't mean porn in itself is good nor bad. It needs to be personally controlled so it doesn't negatively affect you by constantly pursuing dopamine peaks over and over. It becomes more extreme when you can no longer reach those peaks because you've been pursuing the activity for far too long, and you need to hold yourself accountable and bring this change. And while there isn't really any official addiction model criteria for porn addiction, as of yet, there are indications that Addiction to porn might exist, with the typical risk factors applied to any other form of addiction. Medical professionals have yet to reach some form of consensus regarding what an addiction model and criteria is to diagnose someone with a porn addiction. But don't panic, the reality is people with indications of a true porn addiction are in the minority, and you likely haven't become addicted like many sensationalized or yellow journalism style reports would suggest. And it takes a whole lot more than looking at P-Hub once or twice a day to form any type that would resemble anything classified as possible to an addiction. Porn addiction, the ultimate destroyer of humanity and dating. So just for funsies, let's pretend that this is actually a problem a lot of the sources like to make it out to be, and deconstruct a few of their common claims, shall we? The typical age of exposure to pornography is just 13 years old. So not to be overly sarcastic, but what decade is this claim from? I mean, like, really? Yes, minors shouldn't be exposed to porn, and yes, the internet has made it a lot easier for more of them to be exposed if they are chronically unsupervised. But young kids taking a peek at an older family member or friend's porn stash has kind of sort of existed as long as porn has been around in one form or another. For example, me and my friends, when we were only like 5 or 6 years old, found one of our parents' Kama Sutra books, and a little bit later found an older sibling's collection of materials, might I say. And it used to be so accepted, but not quite appropriate. It was commonly depicted in almost all coming of age or rite of passage stories. All said, this does not mean it should be accepted again. Back then, we didn't know what we know nowadays about developmental psychology and the effects certain stimuli can have on the body and our brain. This is just a reality check that this behavior is not in any way new, and many of the parents today pearl clutching over this stat and citing porn addiction as the reason, when they were likely doing the same thing and are now just projecting. Okay, number 2. Watching porn will evolve over time and lead to a person seeking out darker and darker fantasies, including ones they used to be repulsed by. So, in a true addiction with problematic and degenerative traits, this is 100% true, with just about any potentially addictive substance, behavior, or else even interaction. More frequent use will likely result in advancing the addiction in severity. However, this degeneration of advancing of their addiction is again based on the person and their tendency towards addictive personality traits and sensitivity to habit forming substances and behaviors, and requires a perfect storm of the right conditions and traits which rarely occur around the use of porn, leading you to darker fantasy. Essentially, this is the item X is a gateway drug and can lead to bad thing Y claim. That has been made for decades to terrify youth and parents alike. Through most of the mid-20th century, it was feared that weed was a gateway to everything unpatriotic ideals, to stronger drugs, all the way up to murder. Before, the temperance movement had people believing anyone that even drank alcohol would become an alcoholic, would eventually end up depressed and unalive themselves. And while both of these claims have been true in some cases, they have only been true in a small number of these cases, and usually as a result of no intervention being made for one reason or another. Yes, porn does give people the wrong idea about what to expect from sex without the proper context and understanding. And yes, it does result in some people to explore previously unknown fetishes and fantasies. But within reason, this again is not a direct issue with porn addiction and is a result of poor understanding or lack of sexual education and consent. But within reason, this again is not a direct issue with porn addiction and is a result of poor understanding or lack of sexual education and consent. As everyone has been told by a parent at least once in their life, just because you saw or heard X do it doesn't mean you can do it.
All the other girls at school are wearing makeup.
But if all the other girls at school jumped off a cliff, would you jump off a cliff?
Number 3. Porn addiction is the result of people thinking they are forming personal connections on sites like OnlyFans and Chatterbait, or dating apps such as Tinder that want you to pay a subscription fee to see more. You know what I'm saying. This I actually totally agree with. However, the people on these sites, such as the cam boys and girls, content creators, etc., are not the problem as most would suggest on this point. The way these sites and apps are formatted is. Chatterbait is actually one of the worst I've seen, so I will defer to that for now. This site is literally designed to work on your brain like a feel-good feeder bar. Much like slot machines, arcade games, even vending machines. Chatterbait is designed to always have the user looking forward to the next big hit of happiness, because happiness! Chatterbait shamelessly makes sure to use casino cash out sounds to cue the host of tip goals, for example, and prompts the host to thank their tippers as another way to form that connection and later addiction, essentially forming a habit to keep them coming back. But again, this is not an issue with porn addiction, just like gambling addiction is not an addiction to gambling, but the reactions you get from the highs and lows. Tipping the host of an adult stream so you can hear and see some bells and whistles, followed by another person saying your name to feel good is the problem, as is the person's impulse control. Again, this is the same argument used to justify spending all your money on a sex worker or a dancer because you love them, repackaged for the modern age. This can also be applied to other platforms, obviously. So let's take Twitch, for example, where I stream usually 3 times a week. The derogatory term of Twitch tots or e-girls is thrown around often, which basically means that women that appear sexually attractive to men only get their viewers and money this way. Essentially, men potentially believe that the streamer will actually be romantically involved with them, basically their romantic partner, if they give them lots of money. And the term simp is used to cover this expression. But however, this term is not allowed to be said on Twitch. And you can apply this mentality to OnlyFans, Just for Fans, and other similar platforms, with people tipping pay-to-view features from videos to DMs in an effort to buy the creator's affection, if the creator goes down that route, obviously. However, unlike Chatterbait, there is no instant gratification from casino-like features, which is why Chatterbait is the worst offender. And as an FYI, if there's any sugar daddies looking to treat me well, I like some nice things from time to time. Just saying.
If you've got some sugar for me, sugar daddy, bring it home.
Buy me diamonds and rubies, I'm crazy about Bentleys, Gucci dresses and drop-top compressors. Wine me and dine me, bring me those platinum rings. Those are few of our favorite things.
Thank you.
People have always been able to spend money for sex in one way or another, or at the very least to be given attention. This trait even goes further back to primal traits that will see our great ape cousins in the wild today use sex as a form of currency in their communities for everything from extra food to protection. And I am sure I could find many more of these to deconstruct, but for time purposes we'll keep it to just these 3 for now. So guys, please by all means make recommendations in the comments or on my Discord for other points and arguments we could deconstruct, and maybe we can consider returning to this debate another day. So now let's have a look at porn addiction and the reality and dealing with it. Okay, so now I may have poked a little bit too much fun at people who sensationalize this problem from epidemic, world-ending, society-destroying levels, etc. But I would also like to acknowledge that porn addiction is a real thing that real people do struggle with, and I do not wish to minimize their struggle or discourage their journey of recovery. So now we will address what is closer to the truth about something like porn addiction. So first, if you've been watching this video thinking, am I addicted to porn? Chances are you're not. If you actually look up any accredited research regarding porn addiction, and it will reroute you to something called compulsive sexual behavior, or CSB. A true porn addiction is just a single branch of compulsive sexual behavior, some of which are well known, others not so much. Porn addiction is just one of the newer ones we've recently come to hear about, casually as we enter the information age of the internet. To be diagnosed as having a porn addiction, the first official criteria from most modern medical institutions that treat CSB is you are unable to stop using or viewing pornography despite trying to do so. If you can't stop, you may notice that you are spending more and more time on the internet despite others' attempts to communicate with you. Having a true porn addiction of any form of CSB requires a person to exhibit compulsive behavioral traits. And while this doesn't mean a person must be doing this every waking hour, it does mean they are dedicating or losing a significant portion of their time to this, and only this, even if they may not want to. Which is why many professionals question, is porn addiction a real addiction? As many have tried to misuse it to their advantage. And finally, to call a truly compulsive behavioral problem an addiction is sort of contradicting what a compulsive behavioral problem actually is. While similar when viewed from the outside looking in, they are treated very differently by professionals. A compulsive behavioral problem has to do with your brain's neurology experiencing a hiccup and reset. A more commonly known example of this is seen with people with OCD, for example. With a compulsive obsession that is more mundane when seen by others. An addiction requires your brain and body chemistry to be off and experience withdrawal symptoms that will not go away until their body overcomes the imbalance. Again, a commonly experienced addiction problem most people won't even know is they have a caffeine addiction. You know the headache people say they get when they didn't get their morning coffee? That is a mild form of withdrawal due to you not providing a new and regular flow of the caffeine to your body for use. This is also why said headache will go away after drinking the caffeine, and why brands like Tylenol make caffeinated versions of their products.
There's coffee in that nebula.
Essentially, at the end of all this, what have I left you with? Well, in honesty, not a whole lot. What I have done is simply show you the issue we are seeing around terms like porn and social media addiction, and how they are too easily tossed around carelessly by people that appear to be in a position of authority and understanding, when in reality even the top researchers currently working on it don't really even feel comfortable talking about it from a position of authority and understanding. Like the great comedian Scott Thompson once said in a Buddy Cole skit about vices on the show Kids in the Hall,
everyone has their own parameters. For some people, chocolate is the furthest they will ever plunge down that slippery slope of vice. For others, it's murder.
Somewhere in between lies porn. It's all about the freedom of choice. The freedom to put whatever it is into your body, whether it be an idea, a line, or Carlos. Yes, of course, that was all said in jest by Scott playing a radical character from the late 80s, early 90s, but the point he made was dead on. A lot of things can be dangerous if abused, overused, or done wrong, legal or illegal. But that is part of the human experience and the freedom of choice. At the end of the day, we as individuals have to take personal responsibility for, and just saying, I have an addiction, even if the addiction was real, it's not the free pass for being a crappy person that most attempt to blame their porn addiction for. There is still so much to be learned and much to be figured out regarding this topic before that will ever be put to bed. And to make grand claims like it is destroying humanity, making men weaker, or causing the dating pool to sour is just outright and utter BS. To quote Dr. Jordan Peterson on masturbation and porn, he states, "It's a second-rate solution to a complicated problem. It's a dead end and not one without cost. It is a suboptimal solution. Anything that reduces motivation to establish a credible and intimate, productive, generous and reciprocal long-term relationship, anything that interferes with that is to be viewed with extreme skepticism. And it is so difficult to do that you don't want to deprive yourself of any deprivation that might motivate you to do it." End quote. As with anything that can be consumed, moderation is key. Some people are better at moderating themselves than others, but at the end of the day, you don't have an addiction. If you're just enjoying something during the right time and in the right place and are not burdening your family, friends and general society with the cost of using something. I hope you enjoyed this video, guys. I hope it served you well, and I'll see you all very, very soon. Until next time. Hello my lovely unicorns, and thank you for dropping by today. I've been your lovely friend Jay, and if you want to see more of me in the future, and if you have not already, then feel free to smash that subscribe button. If you like the episode, feel free to like it and feel free to comment so I get to know your mind. And also, if you do get time, feel free to share it to your communities, such as your Discord communities, your WhatsApp communities, whoever you deem is worthy. But until next time, guys, keep all that love in your heart and spread it out to all those, because God knows this world definitely needs it. Until then, I've been your friend Jay, and I'll see you all very soon. Take care.